The city outside Ethan Cole's office window was nearly unrecognizable under a thick blanket of snow. Flakes swirled like tiny dancers in the wind, coating the streets, cars, and lampposts in a soft, sparkling white. The usually bustling city felt hushed, muffled, as if the snow had pressed a giant pause button on the world. Inside, however, the office remained untouched by the winter chaos, a warm, orderly sanctuary of polished glass and mahogany, with the faint aroma of coffee lingering in the air. Ethan leaned back in his chair, eyes tracing the intricate patterns of frost creeping along the edges of the windowpane. He shook his head, a wry smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Blind dates. The very thought was laughable. He had built a life meticulously structured around schedules, deadlines, and efficiency. There was no room for surprise encounters with strangers, no matter how charming or witty they were claimed to be. And yet, last Friday's Christmas party replayed in his mind like a scene from a holiday movie gone slightly off script. A dare, a challenge, a playful nudge from someone who knew him too well. It had seemed harmless at the time. Julia Harris, cheerful and fearless, had volunteered for a mystery date with him, and in a flash of impulsiveness mixed with holiday spirit, he had agreed. Now, as the snowstorm grew fiercer, a tiny, persistent nod of curiosity gnawed at him. What had he really expected? That Julia would simply forget the dare, that she'd laugh about it with the rest of the office, and life would return to normal. He knew her better than that. If anyone could take a ridiculous challenge seriously, it was Julia. Ethan stood, adjusting his tie absent-mindedly, and walked to the door. He paused, listening. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the panes. For a brief moment, he imagined her trudging through the snow, cheeks red, hair dusted with white, determination in her eyes. His lips twitched in an involuntary smile. A soft knock, almost timid, broke his reverie. His heart skipped, not with fear, not with annoyance, but with something far stranger. He straightened his shoulders and opened the door, and there she was, standing there in a thick coat, boots crunching lightly in the snow, smiling like she had just stepped out of a storybook. "You're actually here," Ethan said, his voice a mixture of disbelief and something else he couldn't quite name. He stepped aside, gesturing for her to come in. "Of course," Julia replied, brushing a stray flake from her sleeve. "Did you really think a little snow would stop me?" Ethan closed the door, shutting out the winter storm, and offered her a small, awkward smile. "I didn't know what to expect," he admitted. He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly aware of how unprepared he was for this unscheduled intrusion into his perfectly ordered weekend. Julia laughed softly, a warm, melodic sound that seemed to fill the office. "That's the fun of it, isn't it? You didn't expect a blind date. I didn't expect a dare. And yet, here we are." She shrugged, the playful tilt of her head making it clear she wasn't about to apologize for anything. Ethan gestured toward the lounge area near the office fireplace. "Would you like some cocoa? Or maybe coffee?" "Cocoa," Julia said immediately, her tone light but earnest. She kicked off her boots at the door, leaving tiny wet prints on the floor, and wrapped her hands around the steaming mug Ethan handed her. The warmth seeped through her gloves, and she exhaled, her breath fogging in the office air. They sat across from each other, a soft fire crackling between them. Silence settled for a moment, not uncomfortable, but charged, like the pause before a story begins. "So," Ethan began, clearing his throat, "you came all the way through the snow, because of a dare." Julia smiled knowingly, and maybe a little curiosity. "Maybe I wanted to see if the CEO really was as impossible as everyone says." Ethan raised an eyebrow, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "Impossibly organized, yes. Impossible. Well, I suppose that remains to be seen." Their laughter mingled with the popping of the fire, filling the room with a rare warmth, one that had nothing to do with the winter outside. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to imagine that maybe blind dates weren't such a joke after all. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows across the room. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, but inside, the world felt suspended in its own quiet bubble. Julia sipped her cocoa, eyes lingering on Ethan with a mixture of amusement and curiosity, as if trying to read the man behind the polished exterior. "So," she began, tilting her head, "tell me, Ethan, do you always live by the book? Or was this just for show?" Ethan chuckled, the sound low and surprisingly easy. Mostly by the book. Schedules, meetings, deadlines, it's how I keep everything under control. But I suppose some things, like snowstorms and unexpected visitors, don't fit into any plan. He paused, studying her face. And yet, here you are, defying both common sense and my expectations. Julia smiled, leaning back slightly. I like a little chaos now and then. Keeps life interesting. She took another sip of cocoa, letting the warmth seep through her fingers. Besides, someone had to prove that blind dates aren't entirely pointless. Ethan raised an eyebrow, trying not to let his growing curiosity show too clearly. And do you usually take dares from office parties seriously? Only when it promises an adventure, Julia replied, her voice softening. Life is too short to say no to something, potentially memorable. She paused, her eyes catching the firelight. You're not going to tell me you regret it. He looked into her eyes for a long moment, and for the first time in weeks, maybe months, the weight of the office and its endless responsibilities felt distant. I didn't expect this, he admitted quietly. And yet, I'm glad you came. There was a pause, a gentle, electric silence where the air seemed charged with possibilities. Julia's smile widened, but it wasn't just playful anymore. There was sincerity there, something that made Ethan's chest tighten in a way he wasn't used to. You know, she said, tilting her head, sometimes the best things in life happen when you step out of your comfort zone. You might be surprised what, or who, you find. Ethan nodded slowly, feeling an unfamiliar warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. I suppose, I've been so focused on control, on plans, that I've forgotten how to just let things happen. Julia reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, and Ethan found himself staring longer than he should have, caught between surprise and something thrillingly new. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering the city in white silence, while inside, a different kind of warmth began to grow, one built on laughter, shared glances, and the sudden, unexpected possibility of something real. By late afternoon, the snow outside had slowed to a gentle drift, leaving the streets glistening under a soft, pinkish sunset. The city seemed transformed, quieter, almost magical, a perfect backdrop for the unexpected turn of events inside Ethan's office. Ethan and Julia had moved closer to the fireplace, each nursing their cocoa, their conversation now flowing effortlessly. They talked about everything and nothing. Childhood memories, ridiculous office anecdotes, favorite holiday traditions. Each laugh, each glance, chipped away at the walls Ethan had spent years building around himself. I never thought I'd spend a Saturday like this, Ethan admitted, his voice low and unguarded. Snowstorm, blind date, cocoa by the fire. It's different, but in a good way. Julia smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight. Different can be good, it can even be memorable. She tilted her head, her expression playful yet soft. Besides, you might actually enjoy surprises if you let yourself. Ethan shook his head, but the smile on his lips betrayed him. Maybe I'm starting to see the appeal, he said. Though I'll admit, I didn't expect you to actually show up. I wouldn't have missed it for the world, Julia said simply. Her voice carried a sincerity that made his chest tighten. Some things are worth the cold, the snow, and the dare. A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only by the gentle crackle of the fire. Ethan watched Julia for a long moment, noting how natural she seemed here, how easily she fit into this small, perfectly ordered world of his. And for the first time, he realized that some things, people, moments, chances, were meant to disrupt order, not fit into it. He leaned back, letting out a quiet laugh. You know, I think this might just be the best Christmas dare anyone has ever pulled on me. Julia's eyes twinkled. Good, because I have a feeling this won't be the last. Outside, the sun dipped behind the buildings, casting a warm, golden glow over the snow-covered streets. Inside, Ethan and Julia sat side by side, the firelight dancing across their faces. The world beyond the office seemed distant, almost unreal, as if the snowstorm had carried them into a separate, magical space where laughter, warmth, and the thrill of the unexpected were the only rules. For Ethan, the day had begun with skepticism, with routines and control. By the time Julia finally stood to leave, boots laced, coat wrapped snugly around her, He felt something new stirring. Hope, curiosity, and the undeniable possibility that a dare, a blind date, and a little snow could change everything. As she stepped out into the now quiet streets, turning back with a playful wave, Ethan found himself smiling, a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the fire. And in that moment, he knew this Christmas, this day, and this daring woman had left an imprint on him that would not easily fade.